What's up, guys? It's Toad back again with another NFL edition of Better Off Dead. This is week 14, and I mentioned I'll be still probably doing videos about the college bowls at some point, even though I know the lines are all moving all over the place and whatever. I got to get to it. First bowls start next weekend, so probably next week I'll do a bowl video, and maybe I'll split them up into two videos across a couple of weeks. I don't know, because there are way too many to talk about. Let's get into the NFL, man. Last week in the NFL, I only had 2 plays, and I was 1-1. The Jets didn't quite get there, which the game was the style game where a team probably is going to cover the +3 when the game is so low scoring and your opponent only scores 13 points, but that did not happen. The Jets, they're really insisting on not using Cody Wilson, and they went to Trevor Siemian after Boyle wasn't getting it done there. And then it seems like this week, I guess Aaron Rodgers maybe convinced them to go back to Cody Wilson. I don't know what's going on in that locker room, man. I don't want to touch it this week, really, even though I know there are some professional guys that like the Jets. I mean, I'm going to have to pick that game in, like, pigskin pick 'em and whatever, so I'll have to figure that out. Maybe still will pick the Jets in the pick 'em pools, but I don't want anything to do with whatever's going on with that situation right now. I don't know if Cody Wilson coming back is a good thing or a bad thing, because last I knew, I thought the defense hated him, but now Aaron Rodgers is coming out like saying that the media is like misrepresenting the whole thing, and I do trust Rodgers, so I just don't know what's going on with that. I will have 3 plays that I'll talk about in a second. Hopefully I can get this done quickly. And at least the other play that I had last week was a nice, easy blowout win with the San Francisco 49ers. So there you go. So at least there was that. Hopefully we have more situations like that. How about that? All right, let's get into this week's games here. We do have a game tonight, Thursday night. Why is this not showing? What's going on here? Come on, man. Let's see. I don't know why. Oh, my God. Really? Of course, I'm having technical issues. I'm up early in the morning. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. I'm being stupid. There we go. All right. Let's look at the board here. Oh, it's way too early for this, man. I'm on no sleep. Tonight, there is a game. Everybody wants to watch this game, right? The New England Patriots against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Who doesn't want to watch that? The New England Patriots have scored, 13 points combined in the last 3 weeks or whatever. And I think they've allowed the fewest points in the NFL since week 9. And in the last few weeks, they've only allowed, I don't know, but they've lost by 1 score in all those games. So, hey, the New England defense is playing pretty well, but the offense is historically bad at this point. They've gotten rid of, or not gotten rid of it, they've taken out Mac Jones. They've gone to Bailey Zappi. Who knows what's going on with that offense? They can't score. It's great. This total is plummeted, too, from 35 to 30, which is awesome, which I think some of that has to do with the Steelers having a bunch of injuries, because Kenny Pickett got hurt last week in their really ugly performance and loss to the Arizona Cardinals. So I believe both of these teams were at home last week, and they combined for a total of 10 points, and all of those were, scored by Pittsburgh. Patriots scored 0 last week. The Steelers scored 10. Both teams at home. This is so awesome. And the Patriots did it against the Chargers, who have a horrendous defense. And Steelers did it against Arizona, whose defense is hardly any better than that. So this is a great situation here, man. So Kenny Pickett is out. Mitch Trubisky is in for the Steelers, which I'll talk about in a second. And Najee Harris looks like he's also going to be out for the Steelers. So this is an amazing situation here, right? Everybody's going to love watching this game. Yeah, no. No, thank you. Thanks, NFL and Amazon Prime, for putting this game out there as one of the Thursday night games. But hey, the Steelers have a chance to make the playoffs still. Patriots certainly do not. So, looking at the market here, though, you got the Steelers sitting at a 6-point favorite. I think the look ahead to this was actually 6.5 a week ago. So, Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris are worth a half point, man, between the both of them combined. Oh, man, that line's moved a ton due to those injuries. The Steelers, yeah, they have 62% of the cash, though, but 54% of the tickets. So it looks like the cash discrepancy is actually on the Pittsburgh Steelers here, laying 6 points in a game where the total is around 30. And that's really how disrespected the New England offenses, and maybe it's warranted. The Patriots team total in this game is like 12.5, which I think is the lowest NFL team total in a single game that we've seen at any point this year. This is crazy, man. I think this is the lowest total, dude. And you can see here the Jaguars-Browns total has gone way low as well because of all those Jaguars injuries. But yeah, I lean to the Steelers in this one, as horrendous as that seems, as horrific as that seems. The market seems to be indicating that way with the cash discrepancy. I think recreational bettors are going to look at this, and as ugly as the Patriots have been, the Steelers' offense has been as ugly, even though the Steelers have a much better record and could make the playoffs. I think if the playoffs started right now, they'd actually be in, but I think that people are going to look at this and say these teams have not been scoring at all. They know that these Thursday night games are notoriously low scoring, and think that the 6 points just looks like way too much to lay with either of these teams, regardless of which one is favored. I think that might kind of be the sentiment here, but I think the spot lines up better for the Steelers. The Patriots lost to the Chargers, and the Patriots do seem to be in disarray, so that you might say that we'll tend to like undervalue them, maybe, even though I don't really think that that's happening in this line. But the Chargers aren't that bad a team, so I don't know that even though you scored 0 against a bad defense, your defense played well in that game and held the Chargers' really good offense to 6 points, so I don't know that that's really that embarrassing. I think the Steelers game was much more embarrassing, losing to the 2-10 or whatever they are Arizona Cardinals at home, losing to one of the teams that has one of the worst records in football, even though, of course, the Cardinals did get Kyler Murray back and James Conner back, ex-Steeler, I believe, right? James Conner, he's ex-University of Pittsburgh, and I think he was on the Steelers as well. He wound up playing against them as a member of the Cardinals, but I think that puts the Steelers in more of a bounce-back spot than the Patriots. The Patriots just are in continuous disarray, and at least they're like playing closer games and playing tough defense, and they lost to a team that's not really that bad a team, the LA Chargers. Steelers losing to Arizona, that's really embarrassing. You lose by 14, and that game looked worse than it was because I'm pretty sure there was a point where the Steelers were about to score in that game, about to score a touchdown, and they threw an interception in the end zone or something, and it might have been run back. I don't even remember what happened in that one. There was one play that like swung the game in like a swung it 2 scores in like one play, or almost like that, something like that. There was some defensive play by the Cardinals that like swung the game even more in their favor. And I mentioned I liked the Cardinals last week. I thought it was a bad spot for the Steelers coming off a divisional win over the Cincinnati Bengals, even though the Bengals had Jake Browning making his first NFL start ever. And the Bengals really did not play well, but the Steelers really couldn't get separation, even though the Steelers dominated them yardage-wise and put up 400-something yards, which is like, I think, more yards than the Steelers have put up in any game for like years, which is really crazy to think about, and they only scored 16 in that game, but that's still a big divisional win the Steelers are coming off of, and they had this game up next, a Thursday game, even though it's against the New England Patriots. They're still hosting a national Amazon Prime TV game, international even, maybe, because it's on Amazon Prime, man. It's on the web, so that was a little bit sandwichy, so I did like the Cardinals in that one. I probably should have wound up betting it. Unfortunately, I did not. It was one of the ones that was like close to a play for me. So I think the Steelers are the more embarrassed team here out of the two. And I think they have the injured player theory going for them now too, because they lost Kenny Pickett, and it looks like they're without Najee Harris here. So what that's going to do is it's going to influence the line. As I mentioned, it's only half point, but it will influence the line a little bit more against the Steelers and put maybe a little bit more value on them in that first game, even though, Mitch Trubisky came in last game. But in that first game, like without your like key offensive players, a lot of times the team will know that that's the case, and they'll step up and want to overcome that loss to injury there, and they'll step up and play well for that first game. Even that might have more of an effect when it's a Thursday night game. They know people might be watching this, even though maybe they won't because it's a horrible game. But I think it might have that effect where the team might like step up and rally to try to overcome that injury. That loss that they had last week is Also, I think the worst loss under Mike Tomlin's tenure, which is crazy to think about the Steelers not having lost worse than maybe it was the worst home loss or something like that. I don't know. It was at least one of his worst losses as a member of, as the head coach of the Steelers. Tomlin is really good in a bounce back situation as well, even though, yeah, Belichick is too, but this year that has certainly not been the case. With Tomlin, I think that has been more the case. He's been coaching the Steelers to really overperforming this year, overperforming their talent level. So I think all of that is in favor of the Steelers. I think the drop-off to Mitch Trubisky from Pickett is negligible at best. I don't think there's that much of a difference there. Trubisky, he's got experience. He's been in the league for a while. He's started games before. He's been on this team for a while. And he understands the Steelers' offense. He knows their plays. He can get in there and play. So I don't think it's really much of a downgrade having Mitch Trubisky in there. Pickett was not really doing anything special. So, and then with Najee Harris, it's easier to replace a running back than a quarterback in this league. So I don't know how detrimental that really is either, except maybe to fantasy teams, although mine is already dead at this point. But I do have Najee Harris on one of my fantasy teams. So all of that has me leaning the Steelers. I'm taking too long just to talk about this ugly, awful Thursday night game. And I do think that the fact that it's a quick turnaround Thursday night game, I think that tends to favor the home team. So I think all of that is in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers staying at home so they don't have to travel. When you have that short week like that and it's a little bit more of an unfamiliar venue to be playing in, it's like not a divisional opponent or anything like that, the home team tends to have the advantage with a quick turnaround time because they're the one that's used to playing in that stadium. And in this case, the Steelers don't have to travel at all. So I think that all is an advantage for the Steelers as well. I don't really see much of an advantage on the Patriots side, really. Most of the angles that I tend to look for here are line up on the Steelers. I can't really actually do it with an actual play, but I lean to the Steelers, even though it would be -6. Oh, my God. That's the way I look in that one. Let's go to the actual plays. Let's get it done here. First one, they're all going to be in different time slots. Indianapolis Colts -1 against the Cincinnati Bengals. What am I doing here? Why do I like this? Let's look at the market first. The market looks like it's moving in the Colts' direction. Or no, actually, it does not. Never mind. But this is, I think, I don't know if this is reacting to more of the Bengals injury situation. Maybe it is. Bengals look like they opened as a 2-point dog here, and now it is a pick 'em. They got 90% of the cash on them, I guess, but 83% of the tickets on them. But so even though it looks like the Bengals have the cash discrepancy in the line, maybe moving in their direction, I like the Colts situation. I think this is going to set up nicely on the Colts. I think some of that line movement from where it opened might be from like a week beforehand. I think this might be people overreacting to what they saw last week. I think the market is going to overreact to that a little bit and set us up with some value on the Colts here. And I think the Bengals are going to be the public team because of what we just saw out of these two teams. So what did we just see? So yeah, it does look like that was the opener, according to ESPN Bet as well. But I don't know, ESPN Bet, the place that doesn't push bets at all, and if you push, you lose at ESPN Bet. Yeah, they better change something about that because I'm not going to get involved with ESPN Bet if they don't do that. So, what did the Cincinnati Bengals do last week? Everybody saw what they did, man. I talked about this game on my video, mentioned that I leaned that way. The Cincinnati Bengals pulled off a huge upset that everybody saw on Monday night against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really high-scoring game. They looked like a completely different team than the previous week. Jake Browning made his second start, and he looked like a completely different quarterback. He looked like it was just Joe Burrow in there again. He had a great performance in his second NFL start after a really bad one in his first start. So now people are going to look at this, and I think they're going to think, whoa, like Cincinnati just beat Jacksonville on the road as like huge underdogs. Of course, they're going to win this game against Indy, right? Who looked awful last. Cincinnati's back, baby. They're still fighting for a playoff spot, even though Indy is as well. I think the perception of these two teams is that Cincinnati is the better team, even though they're without Joe Burrow. They started the season bad, and they've had this tough stretch. And people are going to say, well, two of those are division opponents. I don't know what people are going to say here, really, but they do know that Joe Burrow is still out. But also, maybe there's a little bit less to glean from that Jacksonville win. Well, maybe a little bit, because Jacksonville did have some injuries in that game. They lost Christian Kirk, unfortunately for my fantasy team. That actually put the nail in the coffin of my season. They lost him on the first play of the game, so they're without him. But they have other good wide receivers, and Washington really did a good job stepping up for him. So I don't think that really influenced the game that much with Kirk out. And then people will say Trevor Lawrence went down, but he didn't go down until later in that game. And yeah, I mean, maybe that does have an effect when the game is really close at the end there. Maybe that helped push Cincinnati over the edge a little bit. But, excuse me, either way. So that might make Cincinnati's win look a little bit better than it was, I guess. But also, the main factor here is that Cincinnati put in a max effort, man. They pulled off a huge upset on the national stage. That was a huge win. Everybody saw it, and that could be considered almost like a Jake Browning, like, legitimizer game. And I think he looked too good. I don't know that he's that good, like, this quickly, really. Jake Browning, he played really well in that game, for sure. But I just don't know, man. That game, it was just a weird situation. I think Cincinnati really stepped up. They really showed up to play in that game, played a great game. You're never as good as you look in your best game, and I think that was their best game. That was like a legitimizer for Jake Browning. I think now they're in kind of a letdown spot here. That's what I think about this. I'm going against the Bengals here. I think they're going to be overvalued because people saw that. And it's now, the Bengals are back, baby. But their defense wasn't really good in that game. They gave up 31 points in that game. Their defense has actually not been very good this year. The Cincinnati Bengals, they've taken a step back defensively this year. So even though their offense was doing pretty well with Joe Burrow, and they did really well last week, I don't know, man. That's tough. I think their defense is bad. The Colts are a team that can certainly score some points. So I think that is going to help the Colts a little bit. It's going to help us line up on the Colts. And what do we see from the Colts here? The Colts last week looked ugly, man. Even though they won against Tennessee in overtime, people saw that game, and I think they know that Tennessee actually outplayed the Colts, even though I got the pick right in my pool. So whatever, I guess. But Tennessee probably deserved to win that game. They outplayed Indy, and Indy swung the game on a couple of key, turnover, fluke plays. There was a blocked punt, although it only resulted in Indy getting a field goal out of that one. And I think Indy might have missed some field goals in that game, too. I don't even remember, but there were a couple of pretty key mistakes on the Tennessee side that really influenced the game and helped the Colts. Yeah, so Tennessee did outgain them. It was 2 turnovers on both sides. Tennessee outplayed them a bit. I believe Derrick Henry also went down late in the game, so he was out of the game by the time it got into overtime. They were using, what's his name? Spears. I don't even know, whatever his name is. So there was a lot going on in that game. Maybe people look at it and think that it's a good, nice divisional win for Indy, but I don't really think so, because Tennessee's just been playing bad this year. I don't think people are going to take anything away from the Colts having beaten the Tennessee Titans. I think people are just going to think whatever about that. So that all being said, for the most part, it's a letdown spot for the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm on the Indianapolis Colts -1. Play number 2, we're going to the next time slot. And this is, this is the first one that I was on. I grabbed it. This is another, huge letdown spot. Fading the San Francisco 49ers. I'm taking the Seahawks at plus 10.5. I think this line is really high. It's kind of out of control. Even the bettors might actually think otherwise about this. 49ers are down from 11 to 10.5. They get 81% of the cash, but 78% of the tickets. So looks like they have the cash discrepancy, but they're going to be the public home team, I think, man, even though this line is huge. What did people see from the 49ers? Well, I was on them last week, and I explained why. I thought that was a huge game. It was revenge against the Eagles for knocking them out of the playoffs last year. The 49ers lost Brock Purdy in that game. They really wound up not being able to do anything because of the injuries. The 49ers thought they were the team that should have been in the Super Bowl last year. They should have won that game. They were at home. I think that's true. I think they were the better team. They really had something to prove in that game. Plus, I think they were 2 or 3 games behind the Eagles going into that game, 2 games, I guess. So for playoff seeding, the game mattered a lot as well. The 49ers really showed up in that game, and they played the best game they could possibly play. It was almost a perfect game from the San Francisco 49ers. They put up 40-something points. They've been putting up some big point totals recently, too. People are going to love what they see out of the 49ers here, man, but I just think this is a letdown spot now. What can you even do that's better than that? But people are going to look at, well, all right, let's get into it. Well, I was about to mention the fact that they played the Seattle, I believe the week before that too. But anyway, that was a huge game for the 49ers. Huge win. They can only be in a letdown spot after that. After that was the game everybody was talking about. Everybody was saying, how could San Francisco possibly be favored on the road against the Eagles? They shouldn't be favored. San Francisco came in and really shut those people up, man. And they proved themselves. That was a huge game. Win of the season type of thing. Now they go and what are they doing? They're playing the Seattle Seahawks, who they just played the prior week. They played the Seahawks on Thanksgiving night, and that was a game on national stage that everybody saw. And San Francisco looked really good in that game too. And they went into San Francisco San Francisco went into Seattle and they manhandled Seattle. Although the final score, I think, made it look less close than it actually was. Seattle was at least within like 13 or something closer to the end there, and it wound up being less close than that in the end of it because San Francisco scored again at the end. But people are going to look at that, and what they saw last week and only want the 49ers here. Man, they blew out Seattle in Seattle. They were laying 6.5 or so in that game, and now they're only laying 10.5 at home. And if they could beat Seattle by more than 10.5, by more than double digits in Seattle, people are going to say, how could they not do the same thing at home, right? Like, they beat them by more than that in Seattle's own house. Of course they're going to do that at home, too. I don't think so. I think it's a letdown, and it also sets up that road revenge angle, in-divisional road revenge. It's a strong angle that I mention a lot that I tend to like to look at in a lot of cases. When you're a team like the Seattle Seahawks and you lost at home to that divisional foe in that first divisional matchup, which is what they did, and this was on a national stage in pretty embarrassing fashion. Seattle really put up an embarrassing showing in front of everybody on Thanksgiving night. When that happens, you go into that team's house, the team that just beat you 2 weeks ago in your own house and embarrassed you, you're going to want to show up, man. You have all the adjustments to make. You're going to want to put up a better performance. That is, I believe, going to be the case with the Seattle Seahawks. This line has just gotten out of control. It's gone too far. It's double digits. The total isn't that high at 46.5. This is a ton of points. This is the NFL, man. Seattle, they're fighting to get into the playoffs, too. So, like, Seattle is going to want to show up in this game. I like Seattle. It's a lot of points to be taken here between any NFL teams, really. And this is like a decent Seattle team against, San Francisco. Probably they're the best team in the NFL, but even so, Seattle is not close to one of the worst teams in the NFL, really. And you might say, well, Seattle, like, what if they're in a hangover? Because they kind of wound up in having a letdown last week. They had a national TV game. They played really well against the Dallas Cowboys in a pretty big game. And they maybe should have won that game. They were winning that game by 5 in the final minutes of that game and wound up giving up a touchdown and losing in the end, but still covering against the Dallas Cowboys in a very high-scoring affair. So that was a big game. You might say Seattle might have a little bit of a hangover there. When it's against the 49ers, I don't think so, man. This game means too much for all the reasons that I just stated. I don't think you're going to have a hangover or a letdown when you're playing the San Francisco 49ers. I don't see it. And at the very least, Seattle has extra time off over what San Francisco has because they haven't played since Thursday, and San Francisco played on Sunday. So Seattle has a little bit of extra time off to prepare for this. So I think they have a little bit more of a slight advantage going in their way for that reason as well. I'm on it. Seattle Seahawks plus 10.5. And I forget if I mentioned it in the Indy game, but Cincinnati also has a shorter week because they played on Monday night. So they have one fewer day off than Indy does. So that's why I look at all of those. And the final game I'm going to be on, please help me, the New York Giants plus 6.5, man. This is, oh, God, how can I do this? They're playing, they're hosting the Green Bay Packers. This is one of 2 Monday night games, which I'll talk about the other one really quickly in a second. Hopefully I can get this done quickly. How could I possibly be on Green Bay, man? And you might want to wait around. I haven't actually taken this yet, but I probably will at some point shortly. But you might be able to get the 7 in this game. It looks like it's been teetering around the 7. It's gone up from Green Bay 4.5 into the 7 or 6.5 range. I still kind of like it at 6.5, but if you can get the 7, obviously that would be better if you can get that key number 7. Green Bay has 86% of the tickets, but 84% of the cash on them. So they are the public road favorite, laying a lot of points here. And the cash discrepancy is actually in favor of the Giants. The recreational bettors are going to want nothing to do with the Giants here, man. The Giants have been ugly, but I think there are a lot of advantages on the Giants side here, really. They are coming out of a bye, which I think is a positive, even though you might argue, yeah, they went into the bye on a win streak, so you could consider that bye to be a momentum stopper in a way. Yeah, I mean, I would say that's true in a lot of cases, but even though they won those games, those are kind of ugly games, man, against teams that are not very good. When you're the Giants, like, you can't really afford to not be focused, really. So they beat Washington, which is a divisional opponent. They're actually ahead of Washington in the standings now because Washington just lost again while the Giants didn't play. So the Giants moved ahead of them by not playing. That's how bad those two teams are. And then the Giants beat New England, which I thought New England was going to put up a better showing in that game. They've just been awful. They've been ugly. Nobody's really going to take anything away from those games. Those games are not impressive. The Giants game, the Washington game that the Giants played, they were held up by 6 Washington turnovers. Washington actually outperformed them statistically in that game. And they were -6 in turnovers, man. You're just not going to win an NFL game when that's the case. Giants should have won by more. Giants have not played well in those games, so. And this is a Monday night game against a Green Bay Packers team that's been playing quite well. I do think that you're going to show up focused. I think you are actually going to use that bye week to prepare something, because even though you won those last 2 games, you didn't play well in either of those. So I think they are going to use that bye week to come up with something. I think they're going to want to play well in this game. I like it. So I think the bye is probably an advantage for the Giants there. They have that extra week to prepare for a team that's now 6-6 and in the playoff hunt. So it's kind of a big game. Green Bay, on the other hand, this is more of a fate of Green Bay than it's a play on the Giants. I mean, when are you ever going to want to play on the Giants? Even though, like I said, they do have the extra rest there. So I think that might help them a little bit. Green Bay, look at what they've done recently, man. They've reeled off 3 straight wins. I was on the one against the Chargers. Yeah, I mean, they're better than the record indicates. That was a pretty good win for Green Bay, but it was a bad spot for the Chargers. So I was on it. Green Bay probably should have won 5 games in a row, actually, though. I mean, they beat the Rams without Stafford, though, so that's not saying much either. They beat Pittsburgh. They lost to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh beat themselves. Green Bay beat themselves. Jordan Love threw an interception in the end zone that was the difference in that game. Pittsburgh got a stupid late field goal to cover the spread as well. Kind of irritating to me because I picked Green Bay to cover in that one. I didn't bet it, obviously, but so there's that game. They beat the Chargers, and the Chargers were in a bad spot. Then Green Bay really had a good game. This is the one game that, these last 2 were both kind of really good, I guess. But now they've played 2 national spotlight games. They went into Detroit and won on Thanksgiving against your division rival, the team that's leading your division. It was also road revenge for Detroit, having manhandled Green Bay in a Thursday night game that everybody also saw in Green Bay. So Green Bay got that revenge, played a really good game against Detroit on Thanksgiving. Huge win there. And then what did they do last week? What everybody saw last, Green Bay played on Sunday night. National TV again, primetime, Sunday Night Football. They had the Kansas City Chiefs coming into their house. And I mentioned I thought that was a tough spot for Kansas City. Green Bay, the one negative that they had going into that game was that they were possibly in a letdown spot after such a huge win over Detroit. But when it's a Sunday night game and you have Kansas City coming into your house, probably you're not going to suffer the letdown, and that was the case. Green Bay did not suffer it. They played well. They outplayed Kansas City, I believe, pretty much. And they, of course, as you can see, they won the game, and everybody saw it. That was another really good game for Green Bay, even though I'll take a little bit less away from that because Kansas City was in a worse spot than Green Bay was, in my opinion. Kansas City, they had Buffalo up next at least, which is a pretty gigantic look ahead. And the road out of conference games are kind of the games that mean the least on your schedule. So that was the situation for Kansas City in that game against Green Bay. Green Bay won. They pulled off the upset as an underdog. Everybody saw it. Now the roles are reversed, man. Now they're having to go to New York, to the Giants, against a rested Giants team on Monday night. And they're the one that's laying 6.5 now on the road, whereas they were the team getting 6 or 6.5 at home in the previous game. Now you're in the public, like Kansas City was. Kansas City was the public road favorite in that Sunday night game. Green Bay is now the public road favorite in this one. I think it's a bad spot for Green Bay to be in. Green Bay, yeah, even though they've been playing well, their defense is actually pretty good, but should they be in a position where they're laying almost a touchdown or might even get up to a touchdown on the road against most teams? Probably not. And this is a game of the low total. At the very least, the Giants have been keeping a lot of the opposing offenses in check, even though the Giants' offense has been terrible. I don't even know who's starting a quarterback for the Giants. I'm not sure that it matters as far as this play is concerned here. Tommy DeVito has obviously not looked good for the Giants. Even though Daniel Jones isn't very impressive, probably you'd rather have Jones in there if you're going to play the Giants. This line probably is indicating it's probably still going to be Jones is out for the year, right? I can't even remember. I guess he is. So I think it's going to be DeVito, Tommy DeVito, Joe Pesci from Goodfellas. I think it's probably going to be him. Either way, it's just too many points to be lame in. And this is a game where the total has also gone down from 37.5 to 36.5 or so, 37 to 36 according to pregame here. Yeah, give me the Giants. Give me the points with the Giants. Packers, it's a huge letdown spot. You can't keep playing these high effort primetime games back to back to back like this and have put in that effort the whole time, man. This is now the spot where I think the Packers have the letdown. The Giants are the rested team. They're going to come into this. I think they're going to want to play well. They get to host the Monday night game, as ugly as that is, even though they have hosted at least one primetime game this year. I don't know. Maybe they've been road games in all the primetime games this year. But even so, you're hosting the Monday night game. One of the two. I think you're going to want to step it up a little bit. So I like the Giants. So those three plays one more time are on the Indianapolis Colts -1 against Cincinnati, who I think is in a letdown spot. And I think the line's going to the line on Indy is going to look suspicious because I didn't mention that. People might think that Cincy is the better team than Indianapolis, even though Indianapolis has the better record. The odds makers are telling you Cincinnati is the worst team, at least without Joe Burrow. Indianapolis is the better team. I mean, they're the road favorite there, but people might look at that and think that looks really suspicious. Like you're getting Cincinnati as the underdog at home after what we just saw, and then they beat Jacksonville. Really, I think people are going to want to take Cincinnati at that underdog price. They're going to think that it's value. And I think otherwise there. So Indianapolis -1. I think that looks sus. Seattle +10.5 against San Francisco, who I think is in a mega letdown spot. And the New York Giants +6.5 against Green Bay, who I think are in a letdown spot. So 3 letdown spots, man. We're fading 3 teams who I think are in letdown spots. And real quick before I get out of here, I don't think I really have any other leans to really discuss here. I don't like many of these other games at all. I don't think I can even really discuss what's going on in many of these other games, but I'll talk about the primetime games because I always do. Eagles-Cowboys is probably the biggest game of the week. Cowboys are up from 3 to 3.5 as the home favorite. 53% of the cash is on the tickets, on the Eagles, but 50% of the cash split, it looks like, with on the Cowboys. 50% is listed as being on the Cowboys there because they put it there because of where the over-under percentages are, or in this case, I think. But, well, maybe not. The over-unders, that's not on a specific team, so I don't know. I don't know when it's 50. I don't know how they decide which team to put the 50% on because it's evenly split. I don't care. I'm getting way too autistic about it. The Cowboys, at the very least, they have kind of a revenge angle here because the Eagles beat them a little while ago, not too long ago, a couple weeks ago in Philly. The Eagles won, and it was a close game. The Cowboys definitely had their shots to win that game. Now the roles have reversed, and it's the Cowboys at home. And I think the Eagles are about a 3.5 point favorite when they were at home. Now the Cowboys are. the odds makers are telling you these teams are almost about even. I think they're telling you the Eagles are like maybe the very slightly better team, although I don't know. I don't think the Cowboys really get that much for home field advantage here. They have their stadium is a bit too like big, too open for the crowd to really be like right on top of you and be as intimidating as it could be in that venue. So I don't know. But I guess I lean to the Cowboys just because the market has the cash discrepancy slightly on them. They have that little bit of that like revenge angle there. The Cowboys, I think, need the game a little bit more because I think they're behind the Eagles in the standings slightly, so I think they need it more. The Eagles, I mean, you could say they're in a bounce back spot, but I don't know, man. That could also be one of those like reality check games that they just had against San Francisco, and they might be like feeling like down on themselves coming out of that game because it was such a big game. You had such a bad performance in that game. Like sometimes when it's against a really good opponent like that and it's supposed to be a close game and you just get reality checked like that, it kind of hangs you over a little bit. And the Cowboys have extra time off because they played on Thursday and neither of these teams really looked good in their last game. The Eagles didn't look good at all, obviously, against the 49ers. Cowboys almost lost to the Seahawks at home on Thursday night, so that didn't look good either. But the Cowboys at least have extra rest, so the slight lean is to the Cowboys there, but I just can't do it, man. I really cannot. And then the other Monday night game, both games are at the same time. Weird, yeah. So it's a double Monday night affair, and both games are at the same time. And of course, everybody's going to want to watch both of these games, right? Packers Giants that I already talked about, amazing game. Everybody wants to watch the New York Giants, but everybody also wants to watch Titans Dolphins. Why? Why wouldn't you want to watch this? The Dolphins are up from 12.5 to 13 as the home favorite. They got 91% of the cash, but 89% of the tickets. I don't know how much to glean from that cash discrepancy there. The total is not that high, even though it is going up. It's in the mid-40s, up to 46.5, well, with the under juice, so maybe about 46 at the moment. Dolphins are just laying so many points there. There just can't be value on the Dolphins at this point. They've been putting up a bunch of high point totals. They've been beating up on bad teams, even though Tennessee is another one of those bad teams, and now they might be without Derrick Henry. It's easier to replace a running back than it, like I said, than it is to replace than it is to replace a quarterback at least. So I don't think Spears is that bad. I don't think it's that much of a downgrade for the Titans, even though Henry is one of the best running backs in the league. I think it's only a slight downgrade, maybe like a half point, which maybe is what moved that line a little bit. Dolphins have just been putting up way too many points and just beating up on these bad teams, bullying these bad teams. I don't know how impressive that is because the Dolphins really haven't looked that good against anybody that they faced that's actually good. Like they lost to Kansas City, they lost to the Eagles. I think they played one other like pretty good team in the Bills, and they lost that game as well. So they've been like Dallas, really, even though I do like Dallas a little bit in the game against the Eagles as it is right now. Kind of with both of those teams have kind of just been beating up on the bad teams, bullying the bad teams. That's what the Dolphins have done. They crushed Washington last week, the Washington Unit Patrol Squad there. I don't think there's anything to take away from that, really. Even though it wasn't a great spot for the Dolphins, I just don't think there's value to be had on them. They still won that game in a blowout. The previous week, they were on that Black Friday game that everybody saw, maybe if they even wanted to watch it, where the Dolphins beat up on the Jets. But as I mentioned, that game was really close going into halftime. What actually happened in that game is that Tua had actually thrown 2 straight interceptions. One of them was a pick 6. Then he threw another one, setting up the Jets again. And what actually happened was the Jets stupidly probably, well, I don't know. You don't really expect this to happen, but they threw a Hail Mary because they were past midfield after they got that pick. They had time for one play, and they just threw it towards the end zone, man. And that is what resulted in that pick 6 that I mentioned in one of my other videos. I thought that the Jets were actually closer to scoring at that point than they were. They threw like the deep ball right before halftime there, and it got picked off near the end zone and returned the whole way. You never expect that, but that was a fluke play, and it completely changed the complexion of the game, whereas the Jets were going to go into that game only down 10-6 at the half. Now it was 17-6, and they just didn't recover from that. So I think the Dolphins didn't play as well in that game as it looks. Titans, I think their defense has played okay this year. I don't think it's that bad, really, even though the Dolphins' defense has been playing better recently. 13 is just a lot of points in the NFL, man. So I would not want to be on the Dolphins here. Excuse me. I'm, of course, not going to play this game, but I think I would just not. I definitely would not want to play the Dolphins here. I think the very, very slight lean, I guess, would be to be taking the points with the Titans, because the Titans didn't look good either. Like losing to Indy, kind of an ugly game there. They lost Derrick Henry. Nobody's gonna want to play the Titans against anybody, much less against Dolphins' high-scoring offense. So I don't know. I think the Titans do like to have the ground game, even though Henry's out. I think they might be able to do something on the ground a little bit, maybe shorten the game a little bit, keep it a little bit lower scoring, keep it within that number a little bit there. Even though they do have Will Levis, whatever his name is, a quarterback as well, and he's not very impressive so far as a rookie either. So I don't know, but nobody's going to want to have anything to do with the Titans there. So as such an ugly team, but they might be able to keep within that number. They do have Mike Vrabel as coach there, so he is a pretty good coach, and in that underdog role, he might be able to come up with something to shorten the game and keep them within that number. So that's it, man. That's going to do it for me. I got to come back and do my daily game after I break down the card. I haven't even really looked at the card yet today, which is bad. I got to do it, man. I got to do it quick. So that's going to do it for me. I'm Tower Gang Toad on Twitter. Follow me for my political shit posting and posting about sports and whatever else it might be. Follow the Tower Gang podcast. We are the most offensive comedy podcast on the planet. We had another episode last night I had a lot of fun with it again. We talked about urinating in closets. That is apparently a phenomenon. The kids these days, man, I don't know what we're going to do with them. So go check that out. I'll be posting that episode probably pretty shortly on all the things. Check out Tower Gang and check out Flapper, FLAPPR.net. They're guys, they have a blog, they have a Twitter, they do political shit posting, talking about sports and talking about beautiful women. So Flapper.net. I'm Tower Gang Toad once again. Tower Gang Pod. That's gonna do it, man. NFL Week 14. Let's do well with these plays, man. I like the letdown spots. Peace out.